At the clinic, we're always getting asked our opinion on insurance, whether people need insurance and which insurance is best for them. Now, actually as vets, we're not really allowed to recommend a specific insurance company, but what we are allowed to do is give you some general advice into what kind of things you should be looking for when taking out insurance. So I'd just like to go through some of those things now for you that hopefully will make it a bit easier for you at home trying to select one that's right for you. And of course the first thing trying to figure out is whether actually insurance is required by you at all. Now, generally we would recommend it with the way the profession is going, with the amount of specialists that are out there and the new equipment. Things can get very expensive very quickly, so things that stand out would be things like a fracture or spinal surgery, or you can end up with a long-term condition like diabetes or Cushing's disease, and actually they can get very quickly into the thousands of pounds. So if that's something that would be a real struggle for you, like it would be for most people, then insurance is certainly something to consider. It's also worth bearing in mind that as an animal gets older, that insurance can get very expensive, and it may be that you wouldn't be prepared to put your animal at that stage through such a surgery, which is absolutely fine. And if you've got premiums that are, £100 a month, something like that, then actually maybe putting it into a separate account might be a better way to go for you than going with the insurance. But have a good think. In general, we would recommend insurance as the way forward. And what you want to try and do is figure out which insurance is good for you. So there are 3 different types of insurance, broadly speaking. The best one being what we call a lifetime policy, which is where they'll pay out for a certain amount, say £4,000 per year for the rest of that animal's life. So every year you can claim up to that amount for that condition. The other 2 aren't quite so good, and they will be ones that will pay up to a set fee. So you can claim, say, up to £5,000 for that one condition. So say you had an arthritic animal, you could claim up to £5,000 over how many years that took, but once you reached that you couldn't claim any more. And the other ones would be for a period of time, so you can claim up to a year for your arthritis, but then after that you can't claim anymore. And obviously with a long-standing condition, one that's lifelong is going to be much better, but they do tend to be more expensive because you can claim more back from them. And actually it can be quite difficult to tell from the policy whether you're getting a lifelong policy or whether you're getting one that only pays for so long or for so much. So if you can't work it out from the policy, generally it'll say something like for the rest of the animal's life, then it's worth giving them a call and figuring out which one of those types of policy that you've got, so you don't end up getting caught out. And when you are taking on a new policy, it's worth bearing in mind that any pre-existing conditions that the animal has, so anything you've been to the vet for already, they won't be covered in the policy. Similarly, if you change between 2 companies, anything you've had before will generally not be covered either. So that's worth factoring in. So you certainly can't find a problem on your animal and then go and get them insured afterwards. That doesn't work. That's fraud, so we can't do that. So bear that in mind. And also when you take out the policy, there's usually what we call a lead-in time. So after you've taken it out, usually it's 2 weeks till you can put in a claim for a condition. So once you've taken out that policy, the animal's not automatically covered. You have to wait a few weeks before something goes wrong before you'll start to be able to claim. So factor that in too. Generally, other things to bear in mind when selecting an insurance claim form, it's worth speaking to your vet and also your vet out-of-hours provider when choosing, because they might not be the same people, because there are certain companies that vets will prefer to work with. So if you wanted to do, for example, a direct claim, which is where the insurance company pays the vets direct, that may be something that your vet will do only with certain companies, and the same for your out-of-hours provider. So perhaps picking one of those might be better for you. Otherwise, what generally happens is that you'll pay the vet and then they'll claim back on your behalf from the insurance company, so you still need to have the money for the treatment. Most referral centres and out-of-hours companies do direct claims most of the time for the expensive bills, but there are a couple of companies that they won't do it for, so it is worth checking before you take out the policy that it's a company that your vet is happy to do those direct claims for. Other than that, there's just a few other little details to look at. So when you're claiming, say the policy is up to £5,000, is that per condition, or is that for all conditions in total for that year? Do they add them all together, or is it per condition? That's important to know. Look at your excesses. So the excess is how much you have to pay before you can start claiming back, and that can be just once that you have to pay that, or it can be once per year for each condition. So it's worth factoring in how many times they're going to have to pay that excess. Is it just the once or multiple times? And there's also something called co-payments, which you see quite a lot, which is on top of your excess you have to contribute towards towards the bill. So that can be, 20% of the bill, and that can go up as the animal gets older. So it's worth checking, are there any co-payments that you need to make before you take out the policy? Other than that, the only other thing to look for is whether there's anything other than vet fees that are covered. So quite commonly they'll pay for things like complementary treatment, so hydrotherapy, or whether they'll pay for things like if you lose your animal for advertising or for replacing animal, that kind of thing. So check what other kind of stuff is covered too. So hopefully that's given you a bit more insight into what kind of stuff to look out for, and hopefully that will be helpful for you. Best of luck.